everybody, Courtney here with Smitty's Fly Box. I'm really excited to show you this Gulpin pattern that I've been playing around with. It's a really fun one to tie, great one to fish as well. I'm just going to start off by anchoring my thread here to the hook just right behind the bead. I like to build up a little bit of a thread dam here. This will help lock the bead in, but also kind of build up a little bit of a taper for the end of the fly, so I don't end up with a dead spot that my rabbit sinks down into. So just a little bit of a dam. You could put lead in there if you wanted to. Next, I'm going to tie in our tail. I just cut a little inch strip of rabbit, and I'm going to poke that rabbit strip onto my hook point, and then just remove your hook from your vise and position that rabbit strip up so it's right against that flat portion of the shank. You want to leave a little bit of a tag here because we're going to want to be able to tie that down and anchor it so that rabbit strip isn't moving on you. So I'm just going to grab the very end of that rabbit strip with my thread and really apply some pressure here to make that seated really well on the hook. You could add a drop of glue there if you wanted to. So once that's seated, again, that's about an inch strip. You could play with that as you want to, if you want to do a little longer or shorter, just depending on the water that you're fishing. So now we're going to start tying in our marabou. This is a tan marabou feather. I've taken it by the tip of the feather, and I'm going to tie that tip down, and now just like I would with a strung hackle piece, I'm going to start palmering that marabou around the hook shank. And this is going to cover about the back third of the fly, and so I'm just going to wrap forward but brush back that marabou fiber. That'll help that marabou to flow better in the water. You're going to catch a few strands as you go, but we'll comb that out as we go through each section and really get those feather fibers moving on you. So now we can secure that down with a few good wraps here, cut out our excess, and then I'm just going to go over it again and just pull everything back and wrap over it with my thread again, just to make sure everything's nice and secure. Nice firm pressure on your thread will go a long way on this fly so materials don't slip. Then we're going to move to our second color, our middle color. This is ginger marabou. I like this breakup in coloring here. Gives it kind of a somewhat of a brighter underbelly or undertone. We're going to tie that in the exact same way, just right here in the middle section. So just pulling back the fibers as you wrap, and we're just building up just a little bit of a color base. You could really add any colors of marabou that you want. I've done them in bright colors, chartreuse and pinks, purples and whatnot. There's a lot of different color combos you can mix in here. I usually make that middle marabou feather one color, and then the front and back, the same color. So again, I'm just going to pull everything back once I've tied in that middle section, firm wraps around the marabou, and then here I'm just going to brush this out with my comb, just to kind of help all these fibers flow. You can see it starting to come together a little bit better now. So this is a really popular way of tying a lot of like Alaska marabou flies, and that's where I've just kind of taken and adapted it to a Euro streamer. I just think the marabou flows really clean and good in the water with the rabbit. Next, we're going to take a couple of strands of pearl flash, and I like to anchor these to the side of the hook. Here I'm using 4 strands. You could use less, and you could use more, and you can use different flashes. I'm just going to rotate that excess over to the other side, and I like that flash to extend out to the tail. Lastly, all I'm going to do here is just wrap in our last color, or our last marabou feather, which is tan marabou. And again, we're just going to fill up this first third. This is where you just want to be careful with this because you can easily get really close to the bead, and if you're wrapping a lot against the bead, you could end up making the last step more difficult with the rabbit. So just leave a little bit of a space and just keep working that marabou back. Anchor that excess down, make sure that stem's secure, and then we can go ahead and trim out any excess we have. And again, I'm going to just pull everything back, wrap over it, and notice I have a little bit of a space there against the bead, which is what I want. And I'm going to create a little foundation there, a little landing pad for my dubbing brush that I'm going to make here, my dubbing collar. Again, I just brush everything out with a comb. That'll help that Marabou get untangled and move really well for you. Okay, so next we're going to make a dubbing loop. If you're unfamiliar with the dubbing loop, they're pretty simple. There's not much that goes into them. It might help you if you wet your Marabou to get it out of the way. But notice I'm going to pull down my thread with one finger and then just make a loop and wrap back over that loop just slightly so it secures it. And I'm going to bring my thread to the front of the bead. Now I'm going to take a dubbing twister. There's lots of different dubbing twisters you can use here. This is a rotary one, which is super nice. But you can use single hook dubbing twisters that will work just fine too. And so now we're going to prepare our rabbit. I'm doing this so if you don't have a clip, a material clip, I'll show you how to do it with just your fingers. I'm going to start with the fur kind of pulling to my left side, or where those tips are going to get tied in on the fly. And the rabbit skin is facing up towards me, so that leather hide's facing up. I'm going to grip that hair and then just start cutting as close as I can to the hide, as if my fingers were the material clip. It's a little messier, but it still works. We can adjust it. I'm going to pull the dubbing loop towards me, loosen the loop, and fit the hair into the dubbing loop. And then I pull tight with my dubbing twister. That'll help hold the hair. And from here, now I can adjust the hair to where I want it. I can make the tips even. I can shorten up the butt ends if I need to. Now we're ready to spin it up. So I'm going to spin that rabbit hair really tight. And you can spin it too much and actually break your thread, so be cautious of that. But once I get it nice and just a nice looking collar in there, I'm going to start wrapping that around that little blank space I've got behind the bead. And just like I did the Marabou, I'm going to pull the rabbit back as I turn. So I'm just going to keep rotating that around the hook all the way up to the bead. Nice snug fit right against the back of that bead. And I forgot to mention, I used probably about a ½ inch of rabbit hide there for that collar. And you can play with the amounts there, but this collar makes that fly really bushy, kind of like that sculpin head, gives it a little fat head there. We'll tie that off just at the bead. I'll come in and clip out my dubbing loop. And then again, I'm just going to pull everything back here and create a little dubbing collar. I like the red thread, just looks like a little gill pack, kind of a little hot spot if you will. And then we're ready for our whip finish. This fly's been great. I've been using it all year. I've done really well with it. I hope you guys enjoy it. It's a really fun one to tie, and you can do so many different variations with it. So enjoy and have fun with it, and go catch some fish this fall.